Hey everybody, Captain Murphy here. I'm going to show a ship script that I've been working on. It's a non-physics based system. It's really kind of made for, I'm not sure if you'd want to use it for like RPG type sailing ship, something like that. It doesn't interact with the water directly. The water is really kind of a, it's just there. But it does interact with a wind, the wind zones. And so if you've got multiple wind zones in a scene, it can actually adjust based on which wind zone that it's currently in, or essentially which one is the closest to its position. So what this thing does is it hooks into the script that we use, and what I'm showing right here is the HMS Ontario on the left. It's a small brig, technically a brig snow, and on the right we've got a kind of a frigate built, or closer to frigate built, which is the Queen Anne's Revenge, which was the La Concordia. So these are two assets from models that we have, and they've got all these abilities for their yard turning, rudder turning, helm turn, and other little basic functionality built into the model itself with its own script. So what I wrote was a script to kind of show how to use it, and it really just got out of hand. I've spent way too much time working on this thing now, and it's really fun to play with. So what I'm going to show you is kind of some of the neat features of it. So each ship is set up fairly differently, but not really too differently. And what I'm doing is I've got a single script which controls them and their rudder control, so it sends the same order to each ship at the exact same time. So if I send a command to go, to battle sails or full sails, both ships do it at the exact same time, and same thing with the rudder orders as well. So each ship has its own variations, and what I'm going to show is some of the ways that the variations can affect how the ship responds. So you'll notice that they're very static right now, and that's because the overall object that contains them doesn't have any motion attached to it. I wanted them to stay kind of still for this demo. You can actually put in some kind of like a rocking and rolling or a reaction to the waves and just turn the entire object, and then internally it'll adjust the heel and all that on its own. So what I'm going to show to start with is acceleration and deceleration. So each ship has its own acceleration rate and deceleration rate, which mimics the physics of increased wind pressure on the sails, and then the pushing of the vessel, the mast getting pushed by a certain square footage of sails and certain angle of the sails on the wind. And then deceleration, which is the conservation of motion, where the ship will maintain its speed based on like hull design or any number of other factors, essentially their mass, hull underwater, float effects, stuff like that. So I'm going to show by going to full sail on both vessels, and then we're going to watch the zeros at the top are their current speed. And so by going to full sails, you'll notice that the acceleration rate on this brig is much, much, much faster. So it takes off like a racehorse. But it's going to reach its maximum speed much quicker. This frigate over here, it takes a little longer to get up to speed, but it has a little bit higher speed at this sailing angle. So at this current angle, which we're exactly beam onto the wind, the brig has a slight disadvantage. If we go ahead and turn them into the wind a little bit, you'll notice that the speeds adjust. So you'll see that now all of a sudden we're equal. So now the brig and this frigate are equal in their efficiency to the wind at this sailing angle. If we continue further up into the wind, then it begins to show an advantage to the brig. Now I don't have these massively different. Like I don't have the curves, a huge, change, because I kind of wanted the ships to stay semi-close together. Otherwise, if I make them more arcadish, that brig is out of sight in, a few seconds. All right, so as we get closer to the wind, you'll see that again, this brig still maintains its advantage at that sailing point to the wind. So we'll go ahead and bring them back to a round beam on. Now what we're going to do is, let me try to get them to approximately the same speed again. All right, so we're about the same speed. we're going to go to 0 sails and watch this conservation of that momentum. So already that brig is under 3. Now we're down to the 2s. This frigate is still holding its speeds. So it just keeps on trucking. Alright, so the brig's at 0, and we still got way on that frigate. So this was a little more exaggerated. I wanted this to really be kind of a standout. And that's again why this brig has a lot quicker jump too. I want to kind of exaggerate all this. And this is all adjustable, so you can play with each one of these settings. You can adjust everything on it. So you can adjust the curves of efficiency. You can adjust all this, all these settings. All right, so that was the acceleration, deceleration, and then a little bit on the wind efficiency. And these are kind of set up, they're kind of arcadish, because in reality you wouldn't get as close into the wind as like you wouldn't be fully close hauled and still be maintaining all this massive amounts of speed. And I'd say this is kind of more for an arcadish. So let's go ahead and we're going to crank up our full sails again, get rolling, try to get them up to about the same speed again. And then we're going to do we're going to go ahead and wear ship, which means you're going to go turning, but you're going to turn downwind. Now I'll show you that they're both heeling based on the wind direction. And the yards are responding in kind. So because that's the direction that they're on, the yards are going to respond. And each ship can control the maximum angle of each yard independently. So this one has a little bit higher yard turn versus this one. And this can correlate to your other settings too. So these are all adjustable, and it doesn't actually react to this. You set your own settings. Alright, so now we're about equal. So we're going to go ahead and wear ship, and we're going to watch the speeds as we go down through that large wind instead. And so they've got, like I said, they're both identical turn rates technically, but as the speeds change, that turn rate gets affected because the turn is based on its current forward speed. Alright, so right now we're about, let me try to get as close to 7 as I can. 7 is the top speed on the frigate. Alright, so we usually get about 698, and I've gotten to 699. It gets pretty close. Alright, so this is the best point of sail for this frigate. Not the greatest for the brig, but not terrible either. But because of its lower maximum speed, it's not going to be able to keep up for long. Now, because we got this maintenance of this motion here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn through the wind this time. So I'm going to, push a hard starboard turn. And you'll notice that because of the frigate's increased speed, it's going to turn faster initially, and because of its maintenance of momentum, it's going to get through the turn much quicker. So we're going to begin the turn. You see the speeds are falling off as we come through the inefficient portions of its sailing curve. The brig starts to come around. As of right now, this frigate has maintained its momentum, but we're really bleeding speed now. So now we're coming up through. Alright, the frigate's already through the wind, and it's picking speed up again. And that brig took a few seconds to catch up. But what you'll notice, even though I give them the exact same sail commands, this frigate's a little further downwind than the brig is. So that maintenance of its speed and also that increased initial speed has assisted in the turn. And again, these are fairly close settings. If you really wanted to crank them up, you could kind of have fun with this, where you could make them more exaggerated. And this will become more apparent when you get to ships like, third rates, second rates, and first rates, where they'll take forever to get up to speed, and they'll have really slow turning rates, but massive amounts of firepower and such. But yes, this is where I'm at right now. I'm just kind of I'm going to eventually, I'm not sure if I'm going to sell this in the store or if we're going to put it as an add-on for our ships, because it technically hooks directly into them. But it's a really fun little thing to play around with. I've been just messing with these things for quite a while, just playing with this whole setup, and getting pretty good about the wear ship versus coming through the wind, and then adjusting those curves, for each ship so that they have their own real dynamic capabilities. It's been quite a bit of fun. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and have a great day.